Located right in the center of Hollywood Boulevard lies a prestigious music school called Musicians Institute. Founded in 1977 by Howard Roberts and Pat Hicks as the Guitar Institute of Technology as a one-year vocational school. MI later expanded into a full-fledged college that offers full-time bachelor programs to master's programs. Last week, I was privileged enough to sit down and interview one of my favorite instructors here at MI, Nate Rich. Born and raised in a small town in northwest Georgia called Dalton. He is a guitar instructor here at MI who also teaches other classes such as music theory, ear training, and Sibelius notation program. Some of his achievements includes traveling to China and South Korea for workshop and master classes through MI Outreach Program, alongside with notable musicians such as Scott Henderson, Bagg, Devin Kelly, and Maurice Verloop. Outside of MI, he also receives work as a sideman for various gigs, events, and artists. Aside from playing and teaching, Nate also worked as a professional transcriber for educational courses for the likes of guitar heavyweights Frank Nambale, Scott Henderson, and Jacob Quistgaard, better known as Quist. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the interview.
Thank you, Nate, for taking the time out and sit down with me for this interview.
Of course.
And yeah, for those who don't know who Nate is, he's an instructor here at MI. And aside from teaching, he also does a lot of outside work, notation work, gigging. You have your own band as well.
So yeah, some of those things have fallen through.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, I'm actually in a few kind of like corporate style things right now, kind of in some groups that do that sort of thing. But also have my original stuff and working with a few other original artists as well. Just whoever calls me, go to play, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so you're like the side guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started with the question. So once again, I'd like to congratulate with you for releasing your latest EP.
Thank you.
Titled Make Up Your Mind. Okay, so would you tell us more about it?
Yeah, for sure. Make Up Your Mind is my first release as just a solo artist, and it's a 4-song instrumental EP. And it's got me on guitar, and I wrote all the tunes and the arrangements and stuff. On the drums is Julian Ho, on the bass is Aaron Chung, and on the keyboards is Joe Bagg. The engineer was Arturo Lopez, and it was mixed and mastered by a company called Imperial Sound and Music. And I've always been sort of in original bands where I was part of the creative process, but this is kind of the first time I've ever been sort of completely in control. And as the name might suggest, I'm not always great about making up my mind about what I want in a piece of music or something. And I've always kind of worked off of the opinions of others. Do you like that? Is that cool? Are we digging that? It was kind of a unique experience, I get to make all the decisions, what's right and what's good and what I want it to sound like, which sometimes I find a hard thing to do because maybe I like it this way, maybe I like it that way, maybe I want it different sometimes, some days versus others. Or I even like to explore the idea that the compositions are the compositions, but the uniqueness maybe comes from who's playing them. So although, maybe the EP has a certain set of people on it, having a whole other set of people play the songs might have a different result, and different orchestrations and whatever could result in different things as well.
Yeah. Wow. So also you mentioned all the personnel, they're all MI.
Yeah, pretty much everybody that's on there I've met through MI and are people I play with outside of MI as well, but it's such a close culture here that I know there's always people I can call that I trust to do a good job, and everybody knocked it out of the park. They did a really great job.
Cool. Yeah, I really personally enjoyed the album a lot, and my favorite is Morning Commute.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
But they're all great. So okay, and another thing that I want to ask is you guys during the recording process, you record it separately, or is it as a whole
So
band?
we actually did the guitar, bass, and drums all at once, actually in the studio here at MI in Studio A. So we just did the trio, and then kind of would do 5-6 takes of each tune. If we found one that was really feeling right, small edits. I wanted it to kind of feel as live as possible. To use it for, promoting live gigs and purposes like that. It's like, this is pretty much how it's going to sound live, But the keyboards were done separately. I wasn't totally decided on what I wanted the keyboard parts to be. I wanted to hear how the guitars layered and how everything happened, and then I sort of arranged those later. So I asked Joe to kind of do that remotely. But yeah, the guitar, bass, and drums are all live pretty much together with just some small edits and stuff.
Cool. So anything interesting happened during the recording process?
Yeah, so my plan was to try to get this knocked out in a day, to try to do the whole thing in a day. So the studio was open from 9 to 5, but it takes 2 hours to set up and 1 hour to break down, and we had to eat lunch. So we had 11 to 4, basically. At about 3:15, we were recording the last track, which is the title track.
Okay.
And so it was like, man, I don't know if we have enough time for this. It's definitely the hardest song, just, it's very syncopated, and there's a lot of chords, and there's just a lot of stuff happening. There's drum solos that are improvised and stuff, so it's like kind of risky, And so we did one take of it, and we kind of all looked at each other and were like, I don't think that's going to cut it, man. That wasn't very good. Let's try one more time and see what happens. And we tried one more time, and that's the take that's there. We were so short on time, I didn't want to go around and change my sounds or anything, that usually I play kind of like full chords through the tune, but I just played mostly just doubling the bass line, and then that's when I arranged the keyboards later to cover most of the chords, because I was like, I need this to be tight, I need it done right now, I can't be hidden pedals in the middle of the song, anything, let's just get it happening right now, and it turned out great, I think, it was cool, but I was kind of like, why did I choose the title track to do last, and especially with like 45 minutes left to do it. I mean, I was like dubbing the melody of the song with like 5 minutes left of studio time, like we used every second we had. But once we were done, it was like, okay, thank God, it's done, it's good.
I think it's so interesting to hear this experience, because from my listening, everything sounds so like polished.
Right,
and so clean, like everything is planned exactly as you thought it would be, but there's like so many struggles in between.
Totally, like some of like the solos of the songs, I left a big chunk of it in there, but then there'd be maybe a part that I was like, maybe I can make this cleaner, or maybe this would be better, and I would sort of improvise around it. But that one is the only one that I didn't touch the solo at all, which also was kind of a challenge, because it's the most involved set of chord changes too, and I had no comping behind me. So it's like, I'm really hoping, like, okay, I think I'm playing the right stuff here, you know what I mean? But I was actually a little nervous that once the keyboard parts got added, I was like, what if I just played a bunch of bogus stuff, in the solo, and I just don't realize it right now, but it worked out great. And I mean, I think the experience has sort of, to me, it speaks to the fact that finding people that I trust and having them as a backing, it lets me just kind of worry about myself. I wasn't worried about how Julian's drum takes were. I wasn't worried about how Aaron's bass takes were or anything like that. It's like I could sort of focus on getting what I wanted out of it, and those guys were in no way my concern, you know what I mean, because they were so well prepped and ready to go and ready to take direction and just do it. So it was, they made the process easy, for it to be so high stress.
Thank you very much. And okay, so let's move on from your album. So I know that you worked with like people outside, and notably I realized that you work with Quist.
Yeah.
His name is Jacob Quistgaard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I've been also a fan of him. For those who don't know who he is, he's the guy that makes all the backing tracks for guitarists to jam to, whether you know it or not. Yeah, so please tell us more about how you get to meet him, and your experience working with him?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting experience. He's a Scandinavian guy, and when I first moved here, I made friends with a lot of guys from Sweden and Finland and Denmark and these places. And a friend of mine named Ludwig, I don't know if you remember Ludwig, but he was a very close friend of mine and played a lot of music with him. He was actually working as his transcriber. I think just through this Scandinavian LA community, I kind of got hooked up. And one day Ludwig called me. He's like, man, I've got a gig tonight. I need to do this transcription, and I don't have time to do it. Can you do it for me? And, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so I just did it. And then there was like one other day, he was like, man, I have this other one to do. I'll pay you for it. Can you do it? And so I ended up doing it. And then Ludwig kind of decided, man, I don't think I really want to do this anymore, and got other stuff going on. Would you want to do it? And I said, sure. And ever since then, we kind of chat weekly, and he has such like a structured way of like releasing content. He releases a backing track, he plays a solo at the beginning, he has me transcribe the solo, and he basically makes it into, Patreon content and stuff like that people requested and all that. And yeah, it's been a super healthy relationship of just, kind of keeping like, kind of feels like, okay, it's kind of worth it that I learned to transcribe and I learned these notation programs and all this, because I actually get to continue using it for my own benefit, but also to make some money and work with some people and help them out in their musical ventures. And yeah, he's been a real treat to work with. He's such an easygoing guy. Yeah, he's such a structured guy. It's like it's very impressive the amount of stuff he's created and how helpful it is. I mean, before I ever knew the guy, you search YouTube, you look up guitar backing tracks. He's got some of the best ones out there.
It's probably the first one.
It's literally the first. It's like there's so many that I still use just to practice stuff.
Yeah.
And he's a great guitar player too. Even beyond that, he plays super well. And just has such a structured thing about him. And
I think not a lot of people know that he's not just a YouTube content creator.
Right,
he's also someone that tours in UK, right?
Yeah, totally.
He's
and he's got a family too, Like he's a busy guy. He's got a really, really busy guy.
He's not just a backing track guy.
Yeah, right. He's great.
Okay. You talked about you being like an instructor here, and for me, it's very impressive to know that in just 2 years upon graduating, that you became an instructor.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure the school sees something in you. Yeah. So.
Right.
Just want to ask, what is your, how do you feel like getting this job, and what are some of the traits that you think you have that sets you aside from other instructors?
Yeah, I mean, the number one, I mean, to even have this job and to get it at a young age and be able to do it is not something that a lot of people are fortunate enough to get the opportunity to do. There's a lot of incredible teachers here, and there's a lot of incredible people who come through here who don't get the chance to be teachers. And I don't think that's a testament to that their skills aren't good enough. I think it's just that it's a very oversaturated thing, But I think I was very fortunate that when I came into school here, my mentality about learning things here was everything someone teaches me here, everything that someone tells me matters. It's really significant, and I'm going to take it to heart. Whether maybe at that moment I agree with a certain thing or think it's the best thing for me or whatever it is, like I had a lot of trust in pretty much all of my teachers. And I think that because of that, I maybe was able to maximize what I got out of the program. It's like every course, I was just so focused on getting it just right, what they were trying to show us, that I think that understanding of what this program was trying to do, I think they saw that what they were trying to do came out in me because we had a really good sort of symbiotic relationship. You tell me to do this, I do it. Okay, great, now do this. And I think that maybe the benefit of having young teachers, I think there's sort of like a trade-off because, okay, I start teaching here, I'm like 24, 25, and in some ways it's really difficult because I understand certain concepts the way I understand them, and I have to remember that not all students understand things the way that I do.
Yeah.
right? And that sometimes they need it to be explained in different ways, or maybe they have a language issue, or maybe they have a terminology issue, or whatever. Like, everybody's experience is so different. And I think the perspective of being a young teacher is, I so recently went through the program, I sort of remember the struggle that I see students having. When I see them struggling with something, it's like, I remember having that same struggle. Here's what I did, you know what I mean? Whereas nothing, teachers that are way older than me have way more experience, but they might be so distant from when they were in school, and school is so different now than when they may have been in school, and they didn't necessarily go through this program. We might have a teacher from USC who's really familiar with the academic system there. It's like, I think I'm just so familiar with the way things work around here that I guess somebody saw it as a good fit, that like, he knows how it works and he's willing to do the work to make it happen. So, I guess in that regard, I was a good choice to do it. And I wanted to do it. I do like teaching. It's not just something I do for money or, for whatever, but I do actually enjoy it. And I think that helps the cause too. Because I could easily just go, nah, I don't really want to teach, you know what I mean? But if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't be here.
It's also a different generation now.
Right.
Like, we have internet, I don't know, like, we are a bit more spoon-fed, like, these days. Like, we have everything, like, so accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
But with that, it's also hard to tell, like, what's good information, what's bad information, what's going to be really that useful for me. Like, how do you rank it in terms of importance? I think that's where, like, being in school is massive, because it's like, somebody can go, hey, you need to get this down before you get this down. That's the problem with information overload, is like, where is square one? It's like, it's all just kind of a mishmash. But yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, I grew up in the internet age too, of being able to just look up a tutorial, even if it was wrong, of any song or of almost anything I wanted. And even now, we can do that. And yeah, it's a different approach. I mean, everything about the way we process information and learn and do stuff, the recording things that we have at our disposal, the gear we have at our disposal, is all just like, it's ever changing. So it's like, that has to be considered. And I do find that, sometimes the older I get, the younger students start to seem like of a different generation, for where a long time it was like, wow, we're kind of like the same generation. But now sometimes I actually kind of feel old, I mean, I'm almost 30, I'm not that old, but like, compared to an 18-year-old, I feel really old with the things they might be into, or the things they know how to do or don't know. It's a very interesting experience. But I think going into it knowing I'm going to have a different experience than this person, and I learn differently, and we are different people, helps me to figure them out. Because that's the biggest thing as a teacher, You have to figure out the person you're working with. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What works for them? What doesn't? Because sometimes that older generation of learning is, like you said, this worked for me, so this is how it should work for you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always warrant results, and if it's not warranting results, it can be really demotivating, I think,
Yeah, it is.
And a big part, I think, is being able to motivate students to want to do more, and yeah, that's something every day I think about. How do I do this to motivate somebody to care about this thing that maybe isn't that interesting, or seems like a lot of work, or seems very academic in nature, or whatever, and maybe isn't that fun sometimes, because there are those things. So
definitely. Okay, so the next question is a little bit more personal for you. Like, where do you see yourself next in, like, perhaps 5 years' time?
That's a really good question. I would like to spend a lot more time pursuing making my own music. I think that having the world locking down in 2020 in a lot of ways was pretty awful and pretty hard to get used to, but in a lot of ways was really helpful for me in sitting down and going, like, what do I want out of life? Because sometimes you get so stuck in the day-to-day, this is what I have to do today, this is what I have to do tomorrow, okay, I need to go to bed, and like, okay, now I got to go back. You get so stuck in the in the monotony and just the chaos of whatever's going on that sometimes you kind of forget to care about yourself, and figure out what you want out of life. And, a big thing that I want to pursue more is recording more, playing more live shows of my own music. Still love playing whatever it is, live music, but, I've spent a lot of years doing things for other people, and I want to do some stuff for myself. So, I'd like to release a full-length album at least in the next year or two. I'd like to book some mini tours this year for sure. I'd like to try to get on things like festival dates and stuff like that in the future, like 5 years from now, whatever it is, and really just find those things that there's all this kind of like pent-up musical stuff inside me. It's like sometimes you just got to get it out, and I want to work through those things and try to develop. But other things, I want to continue teaching. I want to find ways to sort of solidify my teaching in maybe more means, like things like educational materials, books, videos, stuff like that. I think that stuff is so important and really helpful in having a structure. Sometimes teaching can feel so unstructured. It's just like, what do we do today? Let's figure it out. And getting some structure to that, I want to do some kind of work on that as well, to maybe release a book or something. We'll see. Something that's kind of brewing in my mind right now.
Definitely for me, I will look forward to that.
Yeah, cool.
And when you book a tour, do come to Asia too.
Absolutely, yeah. That's I've been to Korea and China several times, and that's some of the best experiences of my life. Is
through MI, right?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
do a tour with Scott Henderson.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Yeah, those are some of the fondest memories I have of playing music. So absolutely want to do that some more in as many places as possible.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So lastly, to end this interview, for me, you are my biggest inspiration.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
Really. So this question is also for myself.
Yeah.
So any tips and advice for aspiring musicians out there who would like to follow your what you do?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, about what the answer to this is. I think number one, something that has attributed to any success I've had, whether it be a small success or a big one, is do your best to surround yourself with people that you trust, not just on a musical level, but on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, when making the EP, the creation of it was such an easy process because I knew exactly who to call for artwork, for mixing, for engineering, for instrumentalist, everything. I knew the people to call. I knew I didn't really have to worry about how well they would do or if they would sort of meet my vision. And that's just been years of really making sure the people I surround myself are people I trust, because that trust goes both ways, hopefully. Those same people that I call to do this call me when they need a guitar player for a gig or need somebody to record on their project or whatever it is. And as many of those trusting relationships as you can build, the more you'll work, I'm convinced, because it is easy to get a little stuck in, I want to better myself, I'm going to sit alone for a long time and better myself, but being out there with people, reminding them that you exist, that you're a good person to call to do things, is such a huge thing. I think another thing that can attribute to success is regardless of what you're doing, if it's a gig, if it's a project, anything you're working on, never underestimate the gig and never put less into the gig than you would something you think is more important. And what I mean by that is sometimes I play gigs where I'm going to play 40 really basic pop songs, and okay, in my mind of my musical ability and the amount I know, that's easy. But I also want to make sure not spend enough time on any of it and really put in the time. I don't want to be so stubborn as to, well, I don't need to practice that. That song's easy, I see a lot of people fall into the pitfall of well, that song's easy, and then you watch them play it and they mess it up.
Yeah.
That's and that just comes to wanting everything you do to be as best it possibly could, because I think people notice that. I think people really notice when not only you're doing a good job, but you're consistently trying to do the best job you can. That's what makes you hireable and what makes people want to call you, is, you know, when people call me in a pinch, hey, I've got a gig tomorrow, it's all reading, can you do it? And I say yes, and I'm going to be there on time, and I'm going to bring my gear, and I'm not going to complain, and, you know, like, people like that, and they'll call you again, and they'll call you again and again. It's really hard, especially here in LA, to be everybody's first call.
Yeah.
But even if you're 10 people's third call, you're going to get calls, you know what I mean? Because people become unavailable, things fall through, stuff happens. So people you trust, be reliable. And, you know, I think number 3 is, like, don't forget about committing time to yourself, whether it's to your physical health, your mental health, improving your abilities, or even just doing things you enjoy. You know, a lot of the time I've spent the most unhappy with my musical life is usually because I'm not well balanced enough in just my personal life or whatever it is, and I spend a lot of time trying to please other people or do things for other people, and sometimes you forget about yourself, because this can be a very selfless thing. Sometimes you're working for other people sometimes, and you got to see their vision through. But you do have to take care of yourself. You'll be the best version of yourself if you take care of yourself the best. And things kind of get easier from there, I think. I still struggle with that sometimes, where it's like, wow, I'm not spending any time on myself or the people around me that I care about and things like that. So people you trust, be reliable, spend time on yourself. I think those 3 things, if you can keep a balance of those, success will find its way to you, or you'll find your way to it, whichever it is, you know.
Thank you very much, Nate.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for your time, and yeah, we can end.
Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. I myself enjoyed the interview as well. I learned a lot and got a lot out of it myself. I love it that not only we talked about his music and also just music in general, we also talked about life, how important it is to balance between music and life, not forgetting to take care of yourself. And in the interview, what sticks out to me most is when he talked about his work ethics. Treating all gigs and work seriously, and not prioritizing which gig or artist is more important or which is more easy. Having a good attitude and showing that you are someone reliable, doesn't complain, being on time, and gets the job done will definitely get you hired. Looking ahead, Nate also talked about him wanting to find more time working on his own stuff, such as his music, working on educational materials, and even booking tours for his own music. Lastly, we wished him all the best, and we look forward to hearing more from him again in the near future. Thank you.
1, 2